Her stepmother forced her to marry the man everyone in Seoul whispered about, a disabled CEO, a billionaire, a man who sat in a wheelchair during every public appearance, spoke only when necessary, and looked at people with eyes so calm they made liars uncomfortable. His name was Lee Min-jun, chairman of Hansong Global, owner of hotels, hospitals, shipping companies, luxury apartments, and half the skyline Hana Park used to stare at from the bus window while going to work. But to Madame Zhang, Hana's stepmother, he was not a man. He was a punishment wrapped in a wedding contract. "You should be grateful," Madame Zhang said that morning, tightening the lace at the back of Hana's wedding dress so hard, Hana could barely breathe. "Girls like you do not marry men like him." Hana stood in front of the mirror and said nothing. She was 23 years old enough to understand fear, young enough to still feel shocked when people who raised you could sell your future and call it protection. The wedding dress did not belong to her. It had belonged to Madame Zhang's daughter, Yoon-bi, who rejected the match the moment she heard the groom used a wheelchair. "I will not marry a broken man," Yoon-bi had said, tossing the contract folder across the dining table. "I don't care how rich he is." That night, Madame Zhang's eyes moved slowly toward Hana. Hana was standing near the kitchen doorway, holding a tray of tea. She should have left. But in that house, Hana had spent years learning that servants did not leave while owners were still speaking. Even if the house had once belonged to her father, even if the money that paid for the marble floors had come from the business her late mother helped build, even if Madame Zhang had only entered the Park family after Hana's mother died. The next morning, Madame Zhang called Hana into the study and said, "You will marry him instead." Hana stared at her. "I don't understand." Madame Zhang smiled, that soft, sharp smile that always arrived before a wound. "What is there to understand? The Lee family wants a bride from this household. Yoon-bi refuses. You are available." "I don't want to marry a stranger." Madame Zhang slapped the table with her palm. "You think your wants matter here?" Hana flinched. Madame Zhang leaned closer. "Your father's debts still sit over this family like smoke. Lee Min-jun's side will settle everything. Do you know what that means? The house stays. The company survives. Your stepbrother does not go bankrupt. Your little feelings do not outweigh a family name." Family name. That was the phrase Madame Zhang used whenever she wanted Hana to disappear. When she took Hana's university fund, it was for the family name. When she made Hana quit school to work at Park Fine Textiles, it was for the family name. When she sold Hana's mother's necklace, it was for the family name. Now she was handing Hana into marriage for the family name. Hana whispered, "My father would not allow this." Madame Zhang's face changed. Not guilt, anger. "Your father is dead." The words entered the room like cold water. Hana lowered her eyes. Madame Zhang continued, softer now, which was worse. "And since he left you with nothing, you should be grateful anyone is willing to take you." That was the lie Madame Zhang had fed her for 5 years. Your father left you nothing. Your mother left you nothing. You own nothing. You are nothing without us. Hana had believed it because grief makes people easy to blindfold. But that morning, as Madame Zhang forced a wedding contract into her hands, something inside Hana whispered that the lie had seams. She signed anyway, not because she wanted to, because Madame Zhang stood beside her with 2 lawyers. Her stepbrother, Zhang Min-sik, blocked the doorway, and the family driver waited outside to take her to the ceremony. Because Hana had no phone. No money. No passport. No trusted relative left. Because she had been taught that resistance only made punishment slower. The wedding was held inside a private hall at a luxury hotel in Gangnam. No flowers chosen by the bride. No friends. No mother to fix her veil. No father to walk her down the aisle. Just reporters kept behind velvet ropes, 2 powerful families, and a bride nobody cared to ask. The hall was beautiful in the way expensive places can be beautiful without warmth. White orchids, crystal lights, gold chairs, soft music. A long aisle that felt more like a corridor to sentencing than celebration. Hana stood behind the closed doors, hands trembling around a bouquet of white roses. Madame Zhang leaned close. Do not embarrass me. Smile. Walk slowly. Bow when necessary. And remember, once you are inside that house, you belong to him. Hana looked at her stepmother. For the first time that day, she spoke clearly. I do not belong to anyone. Madame Jiang's eyes flashed. Then the doors opened. The music rose. Everyone turned. And Hana saw him. Lee Min-jun sat at the front of the hall in a black tailored suit, one hand resting on the arm of his wheelchair. He was 35, handsome in a cold, distant way, sharp jaw, dark hair. Stillness that made the room around him feel noisy. His face showed no joy, no impatience, no pity. He looked at Hana as she walked toward him, and for 1 second, something in his expression changed. Not desire, not ownership, recognition. As if he could see the invisible hand pushing her down the aisle. Hana stopped beside him. The officiant began speaking. Madame Jiang watched from the front row with a satisfied smile. Yoon-bi sat beside her, wearing diamonds and relief. Min-sik checked his phone. The contract was signed. The vows were spoken. The rings exchanged. Hana became Mrs. Lee in front of people who applauded like they had not just watched a woman being traded for debt. At the reception, Madame Jiang lifted a glass and said, "This union has saved both families." Saved. Hana nearly laughed. She had learned that whenever people said a woman saved the family, they usually meant she had been sacrificed quietly enough not to disturb dinner. Lee Min-jun said almost nothing. He accepted congratulations. Nodded at business elders. Nodded at business elders. Ignored gossiping guests who looked at his wheelchair before his face. Then, near the end, Madame Jiang pulled Hana aside. "Your work is done," she whispered. Hana looked at her. "My work? You kept the house. The Lees will settle the debt tonight." Hana's stomach dropped. "So that is all I was?" Madame Jiang smiled. "My dear, that is more than you were yesterday." Before Hana could answer, Lee Min-jun's voice came from behind them. "Madame Jiang?" Madame Jiang turned quickly, her smile returning. "Chairman Lee." His wheelchair was positioned near the doorway, but his eyes were on Hana. "The car is ready." Madame Jiang gripped Hana's hand once, hard enough to hurt. "Be obedient," she whispered. Then she stepped back. Hana followed Lee Min-jun out of the ballroom. A black car waited under the hotel canopy. Rain fell softly over Seoul, turning the city lights into rivers of gold and blue. His assistant, Mr. Choi, opened the door. Hana expected Lee Min-jun to demand closeness, control, a husband's right. Instead, he said, "You may sit in the back alone. I will take the other car." She looked at him, confused. "We are not riding together?" "Not unless you choose." Choose. The word felt foreign. He turned to Mr. Choi. "Take Mrs. Lee to the East residence. Staff have been instructed. No one enters her room without permission." Hana stared. "My room?" Lee Min-jun looked at her. "Yes, yours." Her throat tightened. "What happens when we arrive?" "What?" He paused. "Tonight, you sleep safely. Tomorrow, we discuss what you want." Hana did not trust him. Not yet. But those words were the first gentle thing anyone had given her that day. She entered the car. As the door closed, she looked through the rain-streaked window. Madame Jiang stood under the hotel lights, smiling beside Min-sik. She believed she had won. She believed she had forced Hana into a life of silence with a man the world called broken. She had no idea that Lee Min-jun was hiding a secret so powerful it would soon destroy every lie she had built. Before I continue, tell me where you are watching from tonight. And if someone has ever pushed you into a life you did not choose, stay with this story. Because Hana thought she had been trapped inside a forced marriage. She did not know her new husband had married her for one reason only, to give her back everything her stepmother stole. The East residence did not look like a prison. That frightened Hana more at first. Prisons with iron bars were easy to name. Beautiful prisons made you doubt your right to escape. The house sat behind high stone walls in a quiet part of Seoul, surrounded by pine trees, security lights, and a garden that looked untouched by ordinary weather. The car moved through the gate without sound. Inside, staff lined the entrance hall and bowed. Hana stepped out carefully, holding the front of her dress so it would not drag across the wet stone. The housekeeper, Mrs. Seo, approached her with gentle eyes. "Madam Lee, welcome." "Madam Lee?" Hana almost turned to see who she meant. Mrs. Seo must have noticed the way Hana stiffened, because her voice softened. "Your room is prepared. No visitors unless you approve." "Thank you," Hana whispered. The room was larger than the entire back section of Madame Jiang's house. Soft cream walls, a wide bed, a writing desk near the window, a sitting area, fresh clothes folded on a chair, a bathroom with warm lights and towels so soft Hana touched them twice to believe they were real. On the desk sat a simple note. "There is food in the sitting room. You do not have to speak to anyone tonight. LMJ." No demand, no command, no husband waiting. Hana sat on the edge of the bed and breathed for the first time in hours. Then she saw herself in the mirror. Wedding dress, tired eyes, lips still painted. A bride who looked like she had survived the ceremony instead of celebrated it. Her hands shook as she removed the veil. She found food in the sitting room. Rice, soup, grilled fish, tea, fruit. She ate slowly, crying between bites because kindness felt suspicious when cruelty had raised you. The next morning, Hana woke to sunlight on the floor. For a moment, she did not remember where she was. Then everything returned. Wedding, contract, wheelchair. Lee Min-jun. Mrs. Seo knocked softly. "Madam Lee, the chairman asks if you would join him in the library at 10. You may decline." Hana sat up. Decline. Again, that strange word. "I will come." At 10, she entered the library. Lee Min-jun was near the window, sitting in his wheelchair with a document folder on his lap. He wore a white shirt, sleeves rolled to the forearms, no tie. He looked less like the cold billionaire from the wedding and more like a tired man who had already fought many battles before breakfast. He motioned toward a chair. "Please sit." Hana sat. He looked at her carefully. "Are you hurt?" She blinked. "No." "Did anyone force you physically yesterday?" The question made her stomach tighten. "No, not physically." His eyes lowered for a second. "I understand." Something in his voice said he truly did. Then he placed the folder on the table between them. "I need to tell you the truth." Hana's heart began to pound. "What truth?" "This marriage was not arranged by my family." She frowned. "But Madame Jiang said..." "Madame Jiang believed she arranged it." Hana stared at him. Lee Min-jun continued. "I allowed her to believe that because I needed her to expose herself." Hana stood suddenly. "What does that mean?" He did not move toward her. He simply raised his hand slightly. "You may leave the room at any time, but if you can stay, I will explain." She remained standing. Her whole body wanted to run. But where? Back to Madame Jiang? No. She sat slowly. Lee Min-jun opened the folder. "Your father was Park Dong-soo." Hana's breath caught. "Yes. Park Fine Textiles." "Yes. My mother knew him." Hana froze. "What?" "Years ago, before Hansong became what it is now, your father supplied fabric to my mother's small clothing business. When my father's relatives pushed us out, your father was one of the few people who still extended credit to her." Hana stared at him. She had never heard this. Lee Min-jun's voice remained calm, but there was weight beneath it. "My mother died when I was young. Before she died, she gave me a list of people who had treated her fairly when we had nothing. Your father's name was on it." Hana's eyes filled. "My father never told me. He may not have known how much it mattered." Lee Min-jun turned a page. Years later, when Hansong investigated suppliers connected to old textile acquisitions, your father's company appeared in irregular records. Shell transfers, questionable waivers, a family estate settlement. Your name appeared once, then disappeared. Hana's hands went cold. "My name?" "Yes." He slid a copy toward her. It was a document she did not recognize. Inheritance waiver. Her signature appeared at the bottom, or something pretending to be her signature. She leaned closer. I didn't sign this. I know. You know? He nodded. The date on this document is the same day you were admitted to hospital after collapsing at work. Her chest tightened. She remembered that day. Fever. Exhaustion. Madame Jiang accusing her of laziness. A clinic visit paid from money Hana borrowed from a coworker. Lee Min-jun continued. I had attorney Kim review records. Madame Jiang used several documents to transfer assets away from you. Your father left protected property, company shares, and insurance proceeds for you. She moved them through a chain of paperwork. Hana felt the room spin. No. I am sorry. No. Her voice broke. She said he left me nothing. She lied. The words were not surprising. Not fully. But spoken clearly, they opened a wound Hana had spent years covering. Lee Min-jun waited. He did not rush her. After a long silence, she whispered, Why marriage? His jaw tightened. Because Madame Jiang would not allow access to you. Every attempt through lawyers failed. She claimed you were unstable, unavailable, dependent, or unwilling. When she began looking for a marriage contract to settle debts, my team saw an opening. Hana stared at him. So you used me too. The words came sharp. He accepted them. Yes. That honesty surprised her. I used the system she created to remove you from her control. That does not make it right. It makes it the only route I found before she sent you somewhere worse. Hana's eyes burned. You could have told me. I tried. When? Twice. Letters were returned. A phone was disconnected. A woman who worked with you disappeared from the factory after agreeing to pass a message. Hana remembered Mireille, a quiet clerk who left suddenly. Madame Jiang said she stole inventory. Hana had not believed it. Lee Min-jun continued. I should have found another way, but time narrowed. Madame Jiang was negotiating with dangerous lenders. Your name was being used again. Marriage gave me legal standing to protect you immediately. Hana's voice trembled. And now what? Am I trapped with you while you play savior? His face changed. Pain moved across it, then disappeared. No? He opened another folder. Here are divorce papers. Hana froze. He placed them on the table. Unsigned. If you want to end the marriage, Attorney Kim will represent your interests, not mine. You will have housing, security, and legal support during the process. I will not contest. She stared at the papers. A husband offering divorce the morning after the wedding. Not as rejection, as freedom. Her throat tightened. Why would you do that? Because no one should be forced to stay in a contract made under pressure. She looked at his wheelchair. She hated herself for noticing it then. Not because of shame toward him. Because Madame Jiang's words had infected the room. Broken man. Punishment. Burden. Lee Min-jun saw her glance. His expression did not harden, but something closed slightly. You may ask. Hana looked away. I'm sorry. Do not apologize for questions. Apologize only for cruelty. She swallowed. Were you born disabled? No. Accident? Yes. He did not explain more. She did not ask more. Not yet. The library was silent. Then Hana asked the question that mattered most. What hidden secret did Madame Jiang not know? Lee Min-jun's eyes met hers. That I already found your father's real will. The room seemed to stop. Hana gripped the edge of the chair. You found it? Yes. Where? In a safe deposit box connected to an attorney who died 3 years ago. The file was misindexed. My legal team found it 2 weeks before the wedding. He opened the final folder. Inside was a copy of her father's will. Hana's hands shook as she reached for it. Park Dong-soo's signature sat at the bottom. Real, strong, familiar. Tears spilled before she read the first line. Her father had left her Park Fine Textiles shares, the family house, a protected investment account, her mother's jewelry, and a letter. Lee Min-jun handed it to her separately. I did not read this. It is yours. The envelope was addressed in her father's handwriting. My Hana. She held it like it was alive. For 5 years, she had believed her father died, leaving her nothing. But his handwriting had been waiting. Not gone. Hidden. She opened the letter. My dear Hana, if this letter reaches you, then someone had to fight harder than I could from my hospital bed. I am sorry. I have seen enough to fear that Jang will try to move what belongs to you. Trust documents, not tears. Trust records, not family speeches. Hana cried harder. Your mother's necklace is yours. The house is yours. The company's shares are yours. But more than any of that, your life is yours. Do not let anyone trade it to settle a debt. Her hand flew to her mouth. Lee Min-jun looked away to give her privacy. She kept reading. If you ever need help, find the son of Lee Sun-hee. I helped his mother once when the world was unkind to her. Goodness should travel, even if slowly. Hana lifted her head. Lee Min-jun still looked toward the window. Your mother, she whispered. He nodded. My mother. Hana read the last line. You were never a burden, Hana. You were my brightest morning. The letter fell to her lap. For years, Madame Jang had called her burden. Her father had called her morning. That difference split her open. She cried with both hands over her face. Lee Min-jun did not touch her. He did not move closer. He waited. That respect became the first brick of trust. When Hana finally looked up, her eyes were red. What happens to Madame Jang? His expression cooled. Attorney Kim has filed preservation orders. The will changes the case. Fraud, forged documents, asset misappropriation, coercive marriage arrangement, and debt manipulation are all being reviewed. My stepbrother? Jang Min-sik is involved. She closed her eyes. Of course he was. Madame Jang never built evil alone. Lee Min-jun continued. There is another matter. Hana braced herself. What? The house your stepmother kept you in is legally yours under your father's will. The factory shares may also revert to you after litigation. But Madame Jang has already borrowed heavily against assets she did not fully own. Recovering everything may take time. Hana looked at the divorce papers. Then the will. Then the man across from her. What do you want me to do? For the first time, he said quietly, choose. The word hurt. Because choice is heavy when you have never been allowed to carry it. Hana looked down at her father's letter. Her life is yours. She took a breath. I don't want to sign divorce papers today. Lee Min-jun's face stayed still. Because you want to stay married? No. He nodded. Then why? Because I have signed too many things while afraid. I want to understand before I sign anything else. For the first time, something almost like approval warmed his eyes. That is a wise answer. She wiped her face. And I want Madame Jang to know I am not returning. She will know soon. Hana held the letter tighter. No, I want to tell her. Lee Min-jun studied her. Then we do it safely. That afternoon, Madame Jang arrived at the East residence uninvited. Of course she did. She came wearing sunglasses, a fur-trimmed coat, and fury polished into elegance. Min-sik came with her. 2 of Lee Min-jun's security staff stopped them at the front entrance. Madame Jang shouted loud enough for half the staff to hear. I am here to see my daughter. Hana watched from the upper window. Daughter. That word had never belonged in Madame Jang's mouth. Lee Min-jun was beside her in his wheelchair. You do not have to see her today. I do. Then Mrs. Seo will accompany you. Security will remain present. Attorney Kim is on her way. Hana looked at him. You don't need to come. I know. She hesitated. Will you? Yes. They met Madame Jang in the formal sitting room. Hana entered first. Lee Min-jun followed. Madame Jang's eyes moved immediately over Hana's clothes, her face, her posture, searching for fear, expecting obedience. You ungrateful girl, Madame Jang hissed. You do not answer my calls? Hana sat down. That simple action shocked her stepmother. She had not waited for permission. Lee Min-jun positioned himself beside the window. Not between them. Near enough to support, far enough not to own the room. Madam Jang looked at him. Chairman Lee, I apologize for her behavior. She is very emotional. She has always been difficult after her father died. Hana's hands tightened. Lee Min-jun spoke calmly. Madam Jang, do not lie in my house. Madam Jang's mouth opened. Min-sik stepped forward. Chairman, with respect. Sit down, Lee Min-jun said. 2 words. Min-sik sat. Hana almost smiled. Madam Jang recovered quickly. I came because Hana must understand her duties as a wife and as a daughter. The contract. There is no daughter duty left between us, Hana said. Madam Jang stared at her. What did you say? Hana's voice shook, but she kept going. You forced me to marry him to settle debts you created, using assets my father left to me. Madam Jang went pale. Then laughed. What nonsense has he filled your head with? Hana placed the copy of her father's will on the table. Madam Jang's eyes dropped to it. Her face changed. Just slightly. Enough. Min-sik leaned forward. What is that? Hana looked at him. The will father actually wrote. Madam Jang snapped. That is fake, Lee Min-jun said. A dangerous accusation, considering your own document problems. Madam Jang turned on him. You think because you are rich, you can interfere in our family? He looked at her without blinking. No, I think because you committed fraud, the law can. The room went still. Hana slid her father's letter closer to herself. You told me he left me nothing. Madam Jang lifted her chin. He left you protection. You were too foolish to understand how to manage it. You stole it. I managed it. You sold my mother's necklace. Madam Jang hesitated. Hana reached into her pocket and pulled out a photograph Attorney Kim had provided. A pawn record tied to Madam Jang's assistant. You sold it. Madam Jang's face tightened. Min-sik whispered, Mother? Hana looked at him. And you used company shares to borrow money. He stood. That's not your business. It is if the shares were mine. His jaw clenched. The truth was no longer hidden. That was when Madam Jang changed tactics. Tears filled her eyes. Hana, I raised you. I made mistakes, but I kept a roof over your head. Do you know how hard it was? Your father left chaos. I did what I had to do. For years, those tears would have made Hana doubt herself. Not that day. She looked at Madam Jang and said, You kept me under a roof built with my inheritance. Madam Jang flinched. Hana continued, You fed me food, bought with money father left me. You called me a burden while spending what belonged to me. You dressed me as a bride to pay your debt and called it family duty. Her voice strengthened. I am not your daughter. I am evidence. Madam Jang stood. How dare you? Lee Min-jun's security stepped closer. Attorney Kim entered at that exact moment, calm and fierce in a navy suit. Madam Jang, I suggest you sit. Madam Jang turned pale. Attorney Kim placed a folder on the table. You have been served notice regarding estate fraud, misappropriation of assets, forged waivers, and coercive contractual arrangements. You are not to contact Mrs. Lee directly. Madam Jang's eyes moved to Hana. Mrs. Lee? So you like being bought now? The insult struck the room. Lee Min-jun's face changed. For the first time, anger showed. But Hana raised her hand slightly. She would answer this. I was not bought, Hana said. I was brought out. Madam Jang had no answer. Not one good enough. She left with Min-sik 10 minutes later. Still threatening, still denying, but walking faster than when she arrived. Hana remained seated after the door closed. Her whole body shook. Lee Min-jun asked quietly, Do you regret saying it? No. Good. Then she looked at him. I called myself evidence. He nodded. I heard. I don't want to be only evidence. His expression softened. Then, we make sure you become more. The legal war lasted months. Madame Jiang fought viciously. She claimed Hana had been unstable after her father's death. Attorney Kim produced employment records showing Hana had worked 12-hour days while Madame Jiang controlled her wages. She claimed the inheritance waiver was signed freely. Medical records showed Hana was hospitalized that day. She claimed the marriage was Hana's choice. Emails between Madame Jiang and Min Sik showed they had discussed using the girl to clear debt. She claimed Lee Min-jun had manipulated Hana. He produced records showing his legal team had been investigating Park estate fraud before the marriage. The court ordered asset freezes. The house was placed under review. The factory shares were restricted. Bank accounts tied to Madame Jiang and Min Sik were investigated. Creditors came forward. Reporters began gathering outside court. At first, the media loved the easy story. Poor stepdaughter. Disabled billionaire husband. Evil stepmother. Forced marriage. Hidden will. But Hana hated how they wrote about Lee Min-jun. Some articles called him wheelchair-bound. Some suggested he married Hana out of loneliness. Some treated him like a tragic figure instead of a powerful man with agency. One morning, Hana found him reading an article on his tablet. His face showed nothing. That made her sadder. "Does it bother you?" she asked. "What?" "The way they write about you." He turned off the tablet. "I stopped expecting accuracy from people who need pity to make a story interesting." She sat across from him. "You don't deserve that." "No." The answer was simple. Not bitter. Just true. Hana hesitated. "Do you want to tell me about the accident?" He looked at her for a long moment, then nodded. "I was 28, a warehouse collapse at one of our shipping sites. Poor safety compliance by an executive I trusted. I was there during inspection. 3 workers died. I survived with spinal damage." Hana's chest tightened. "I'm sorry." "So am I. Was it your fault?" He looked toward the window. "The collapse was caused by corruption beneath me, but responsibility rises." That sentence told her more about him than any business article ever had. What happened to the executive? Prison. And the workers' families? Compensated. Not enough. Money is never enough for death. His voice stayed controlled, but pain lived under every word. "After that," he continued, "people looked at me differently. Some with pity, some with doubt, some with hunger. My relatives wanted me removed from leadership. They said Hansong needed a whole man." Hana felt anger rise. "What did you do?" "I stayed." He looked at her then. "Sometimes survival is not inspiring. Sometimes it is paperwork, physical therapy, pain, and refusing to leave the chair someone else wants empty." Hana understood that. Not the same pain, but the same refusal. From then on, something between them changed. Still not romance. Not yet. Trust. Quiet trust. They began having breakfast together. Not every day. Only when both wanted. They spoke about her father, his mother, business, food, books, the strange emptiness after escaping people who controlled you. He never touched her without asking. Never entered her room. Never called her wife like a claim. When people visited, he asked, "Do you want to attend?" When lawyers needed decisions, he said, "Hana decides." When staff looked to him instead of her, he corrected them. "Mrs. Lee is the client in this matter. Address her." Choice became a muscle. Weak at first, then stronger. Hana chose clothes she liked. Chose to restart design classes. Chose to visit the factory once it became legally safe. Chose to keep wearing her wedding ring for now, not because she was forced, but because removing it too quickly felt like reacting to Madame Jiang instead of listening to herself. The first time she visited Park Fine Textiles again, she cried in the doorway. The building smelled like cotton, dust, dye, and memory. Older workers recognized her. Some looked ashamed. One woman, Mrs. Han, bowed deeply. "Miss Hana, I am sorry." Hana's throat tightened. For what? For staying quiet. That answer opened more pain than accusation would have. Mrs. Han continued. "Your father loved you, we all knew. After he died, Madame Jiang said we would lose our jobs if we spoke. Hana nodded. I understand fear, Mrs. Han cried. Hana did not absolve everyone immediately, but she understood. Fear had been Madame Jiang's true manager. With Attorney Kim's help, Hana slowly reclaimed shares, then authority, then the building itself. It took nearly a year for major rulings to land. The forged waiver was invalidated. The house returned to Hana's trust. Park Fine Textile's ownership structure was corrected. Madame Jiang and Min Sik faced criminal and civil consequences. Some money was gone forever. Some recovered. Some transformed into legal judgments that would take years to collect. But the hidden will had done what Hana thought impossible. It gave her back her father's voice. On the day the court confirmed her rights, Hana came home to the East residence and found Lee Min-jun in the garden. He was watching rain fall over the pond. She stood beside him. We won, she said. He looked up. You won. You helped. Yes. But you testified. You chose. You endured. She smiled faintly. I still feel afraid. Courage does not always remove fear. What does it do? It teaches fear where to sit. Hana laughed softly. That sounds like something from a book. My therapist is expensive. She laughed harder then. A real laugh. He smiled. Small. Rare. It warmed something in her she was not ready to name. That evening, Hana placed her father's letter beside the window in her room. Then she took out the divorce papers Lee Min-jun had given her the morning after the wedding. She read them again. Clean. Fair. No trap. No punishment. She carried them to the library. He was reading. He looked up. Hana? She placed the papers on the table. I have decided. His face did not change, but his hands stilled. Tell me. I don't want to sign these. He was silent. She continued quickly. Not because of debt, not because of Madame Jiang, not because I am afraid, not because I owe you. He watched her carefully. Then why? Because I want to know you, without the whole world's cruelty standing between us. The words left her trembling. Lee Min-jun looked down for a moment. When he looked back up, his eyes were softer than she had ever seen them. I would like that. But slowly, she said. Slowly. And if either of us changes our mind, we say so. Yes. And no secrets. He paused, then nodded. No secrets that belong between us. That was the beginning. Not of a fairy tale. Of something better. A choice made after freedom. Their marriage remained legally real, but emotionally new. They moved carefully. Dinners. Walks in the garden. Design discussions. Visits to the factory. Long talks about mothers, fathers, grief, anger, responsibility, and how to live after being used as a symbol in other people's stories. Hana started a textile design line under Park Fine Textiles. She named the first collection. Morning Letter. After her father's words, soft fabrics, strong weave, patterns inspired by Seoul rain, old factory windows, and the moon necklace her mother had left her. The launch was small but powerful. Lee Min-jun attended quietly. No grand speech. No husband claiming credit. When a reporter asked if Hansong funded the line, Hana smiled. No. Hansong opened doors. Park Fine Textiles walked through them. Min-jun looked proud. Not possessive. Proud. That mattered. Together, they also created the Morning Door Foundation, supporting women trapped in coercive family arrangements, inheritance fraud, forced financial dependency, and unwanted marriages. The foundation provided legal help, housing, job training, document recovery, and private counseling. Hana insisted on one rule. No woman would be forced into a rescue plan she did not choose. Rescue without choice can become another cage, she said at the first board meeting. Lee Min-jun looked at her from across the table and nodded. Put that in the founding charter. They did. Madame Jiang's final downfall came quietly. She lost the house she had stolen, lost the company control, lost the social circle that once praised her elegance. Min-sik faced consequences for fraud and illegal borrowing tied to Hana's assets. Yoon-bai married a businessman later, but without the park money behind her, the wedding was smaller than she wanted. Hana did not attend. Madame Jang wrote one letter from prison. "I did what I did to survive. You should understand that." Hana read it once, then placed it in Attorney Kim's file. No reply. Survival had been Madame Jang's excuse. But Hana had learned that survival without conscience becomes another word for harm. 3 years after the forced wedding, Hana and Lee Min-jun held a second ceremony. Not legal. They were already married. This one was for choice. No reporters. No Madame Jang. No contracts hidden under flowers. It took place in the garden of the East residence under a soft evening sky. Mrs. Seo arranged white lanterns. Mr. Choi cried and pretended allergies had attacked him. Attorney Kim attended with the expression of a lawyer who had reviewed Love for Enforceability and approved. Hana wore a simple ivory dress made from her own fabric. Lee Min-jun wore a dark suit. His wheelchair was polished black, elegant, part of him without being all of him. This time, Hana walked down the garden path alone. Not pushed, not traded, not watched by people waiting for debt settlement. She walked because she wanted to. When she reached him, he held out his hand. Not to take, to offer. She placed her hand in his. He said, "The first time we stood together, you had no choice. I have regretted that every day, even when I believed I was protecting you. Today, I stand here asking, not claiming. Will you continue this life with me freely?" Hana's eyes filled. Yes. Then she said, "The first time I married you, I thought my life had been handed away, but you gave me room to choose, even when choice frightened me. Today, I choose you not as the man who saved me, but as the man who respected my freedom after I was safe." Mrs. Seo cried openly. Attorney Kim wiped one eye. Mr. Choi gave up pretending. After the ceremony, Hana and Min-jun danced in the garden. Not like in movies with perfect steps. He remained seated. She stood close, holding his hands, moving gently with the music. Some people might have called it unusual. Hana called it theirs. Years later, people still told the story wrong. They said her stepmother forced her to marry a disabled CEO, but he turned out to be rich and saved her. Hana corrected them every time. "He did not save me by being rich," she said. "He helped me become safe enough to save myself." They said she was lucky he was secretly powerful. She said, "His hidden secret was not power. It was that he already knew the truth and chose to respect my choice once I learned it." They said she stayed because he was kind. She said kindness was not enough. Respect made kindness safe. That was the story she wanted women to hear. Not marry the rich man, not wait for a CEO, not trust the first person who opens a door. Number. Hear the truth. Find the documents. Take back your name. Accept help without surrendering your choices. Know the difference between being rescued and being owned. The Morning Door Foundation grew across Seoul, then beyond. Women came quietly. Some from wealthy families, some from poor ones, some escaping forced marriages, some discovering forged inheritance papers, some trying to recover IDs, bank access, passports, school records, some simply needing one night in a room where nobody could enter without asking. At every opening session, Hana read one line from her father's letter. "Your life is yours." Then she added, "Anyone who needs you trapped will call freedom selfish. Let them talk from outside the door." The women always wrote that down. Lee Min-jun joined when invited, never as savior. As supporter. He funded infrastructure, but Hana led the program. When donors tried to praise him more than her, he corrected them. "This is Mrs. Lee's work. I am honored to support it." One young woman once asked Hana privately, "Were you afraid of his wheelchair when you first saw him?" Hana answered honestly, "I was not afraid of the wheelchair. I was afraid because I had been taught that my body, future, and choice belonged to whoever had power. His wheelchair did not frighten me. My lack of freedom did." The young woman nodded slowly. Do you love him now? Hana smiled. Yes. Because he saved you? No, because he never used saving me as a chain. That became one of the Foundation's most repeated lessons. Help should not become a chain. Love should not become a cage. Marriage should not be a transaction. Disability should not be treated as tragedy. Wealth should not be mistaken for virtue. And choice, once stolen, must be returned carefully. Hana returned to the old house only once after it was restored to her. She did not live there. Too much had happened. Instead, she turned it into a legal archive and training center for women reclaiming inheritance. In the room where Madame Jiang once forced her to sign the marriage agreement, Hana placed a long wooden table for document review workshops. On the wall, she hung 3 framed papers: her forced marriage contract, her father's real will, her unsigned divorce papers. Under them, a plaque read, "One paper trapped her, one paper freed her, one paper gave her choice." Attorney Kim wrote that. Hana liked it immediately. At the center of the room stood a glass case containing a copy of her father's letter opened to the line, "Do not let anyone trade your life to settle a debt." Women stood before it and cried. Hana understood. Some sentences arrived too late for one person, but right on time for another. Madame Jiang never returned. Min Sik never regained access. Yoonbi once sent a message asking for help after her own marriage began to fracture. Hana sat with it for a long time, then sent Foundation contact information. Not personal money, not sisterly rescue. A door. That was enough. Years passed. Hana and Minjun built a life that did not look like the rumors. Some days were elegant. Charity events, business launches, foundation galas, factory visits, quiet dinners with powerful people. Some days were ordinary, hospital appointments, pain days when Minjun did not want visitors, factory mistakes, legal setbacks, foundation emergencies, arguments about schedules, long silences after bad news. Marriage was not rescued beauty and billionaire perfection. It was 2 people choosing each other in the real weather. On difficult days, Hana remembered the wedding hall. The first one, the one where she had no choice. Then she would look around her life now, her work, her name, her father's company, her foundation, her husband who asked before entering rooms, her own voice, stronger than it used to be. And she would think, I was not handed away. I was carried through fire and learned to walk out with my name. Her stepmother forced her to marry Korean Seoul disabled CEO, unaware he had a hidden secret. People loved the dramatic part, the forced wedding, the wheelchair, the cold billionaire, the frightened bride, the cruel stepmother, the hidden will, the father's letter, the fraud exposed, the second ceremony. I understand. It is dramatic. But the real story is not about a man secretly being powerful. It is about a woman discovering she was never powerless in the way her abusers needed her to believe. It is about the danger of families that turn daughters into solutions. It is about disability being used as insult by cruel people, when the true brokenness was greed. It is about a man the world underestimated because of a wheelchair, and a woman the world underestimated because silence had been forced on her. It is about documents, choices, names, doors. It is about learning that the person who helps you must also give you room to say no. If you are listening and someone is pushing you into a marriage, contract, debt, family duty, or life you did not choose, slow down. Find help. Find the documents. Find the lawyer. Find the person who asks what you want instead of telling you what you owe. Do not sign because someone cries. Do not marry because someone owes money. Do not surrender because they call it family honor. Do not believe you are a burden because the person spending your inheritance says so. And if help comes, remember this. Real help gives you choices. Real love respects no. Real protection does not demand ownership. A hidden will can change property, but a found voice changes everything. Hana Park became more than Madame Jiang's victim. She became the owner of Park Fine Textiles, founder of Morning Door, designer of Morning Letter, wife by choice, not by force. And every year, on the anniversary of the first wedding, she and Lee Min-jun did not celebrate the marriage contract. They celebrated the morning after, the day he placed divorce papers beside her father's will and said, "Choose," because that was the day Hana's life truly began returning to her hands.